There is a moment, often quiet, often lonely, when you sit with the ache and finally say to yourself, yes, that happened. That moment matters more than people know, because too often we are told to brush it off, to be strong, to move on, before we've even stopped bleeding. But healing doesn't begin in denial. Healing begins when you tell the truth, to yourself first. The truth is it hurt. What they said, what they did, what they didn't do, it mattered. You were disappointed, betrayed, dismissed. Maybe you were used, lied to, or abandoned. And in the middle of all that confusion, a part of you may have started to believe it was your fault, that you were too much or not enough. But before anything can change, you have to name what you've been carrying. It's easy to bypass pain when the world keeps spinning. You have responsibilities, expectations, and people around you telling you to just let it go. But you can't let go of what you haven't first acknowledged. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. That's not weakness, that's honesty. And honesty is the foundation of all transformation. When you say, that broke me, it's not a declaration of defeat. It's a declaration of self-awareness. You're not wallowing, you're witnessing your own humanity. You're not creating drama, you're creating space for truth. And truth is the only thing strong enough to carry you out of the darkness. Sometimes we minimize our pain because we don't want to seem dramatic or sensitive. We say, it wasn't that bad, even when it was. We try to out-tough our own emotions. But emotions are messengers, and ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It just buries them alive. Sooner or later they come out, sometimes through anger, sometimes through numbness, sometimes through choices we don't even understand ourselves. Naming the pain isn't about blame, it's about clarity. You deserve to understand what happened and how it impacted you. You deserve to stop pretending that you're fine when you're not. You deserve to stop shrinking your pain to make others comfortable. There is power in telling the truth of your experience, even if your voice shakes when you speak it. This kind of acknowledgement doesn't need to happen in public. You don't owe your story to everyone, but you owe it to yourself. Whether it's whispered in the pages of a journal or shouted through tears on a long walk alone, let it come out. Say what needs to be said, even if it's just in the mirror. That's where healing begins, in your own honest, trembling voice. You are not fragile because you are hurt. You are not broken because you admit you're in pain. You are not weak because your heart still remembers. You are human. And being human means giving yourself permission to feel the full weight of what you've lived through. It means holding your heart in your own hands and saying, this matters. I matter. There's a voice inside that rises after you've been hurt, the one that wants to see them pay. It whispers that justice looks like watching them suffer the way you did. That maybe, just maybe, your healing depends on their downfall. That voice is not evil. It's human. It's the voice of the wounded self trying to regain control. But following that voice doesn't set you free. It binds you tighter to the very pain you want to escape. Revenge is seductive because it feels like action. It gives the illusion of power. It gives your pain a direction. But what it really does is keep you tangled in the same energy that wounded you. When you seek to get even, you stay even. Their shadow becomes your stage. Their behavior becomes your compass. And your soul, it stays stuck, walking in circles around what they did. There is no peace in watching someone else fall. Even if it feels good for a moment, it never fills the space that was emptied by betrayal or cruelty. Because what you really wanted wasn't their punishment. It was your dignity back, your safety, your sense of self. And those things don't come from seeing them lose. They come from you choosing to rise. Letting go of retaliation isn't about saying what they did was okay. It's not about forgetting or excusing. It's about deciding that you will no longer center your life around someone who tried to hurt you. That your energy is too sacred, your spirit too valuable to waste another drop on someone who never deserved your pain in the first place. It takes strength to let go when everything in you wants justice. But strength doesn't always look like fighting. Sometimes strength looks like walking away without a word. Not because you couldn't destroy them, but because you refused to destroy yourself in the process. Sometimes the boldest move is silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of wisdom. When you choose to release, you choose freedom. You unhook yourself from the cycle. You stop being the character in their story and start writing your own. You become unavailable for drama, for games, for the old narrative that kept you small and angry. And in that space, something new is born. Not bitterness, not revenge, but clarity, strength, peace. The truth is, the people who hurt you may never understand the damage they caused. They may never say sorry. They may never see your worth. But your healing isn't dependent on their growth. It's dependent on your decision to stop bleeding for people who would never even notice the wound. And when you do that, when you truly release the need to see them hurt, you reclaim every part of yourself they tried to take. You take back your focus, your time, your future. You trade revenge for peace. And in that trade, you don't lose power. You discover what real power actually feels like. There comes a time when you stop running from your story and start standing in it. Not as a victim, not as a cautionary tale, but as the author. For so long, the chapters may have been written by pain, by betrayal, by the hands of people who didn't see your worth. But there is a power that rises when you say, "This happened, and this is who I've chosen to become because of it." That is where shame ends and ownership begins. So many people walk around carrying stories they're too afraid to tell, not because they're not ready, but because they think their past disqualifies them from their future. But what if the opposite is true? What if your truth is the very thing that makes you powerful? What if the parts of you that others tried to break are the same parts that will one day make someone else feel seen and safe? You don't owe the world a perfect version of yourself. You don't have to hide the bruises just because they make other people uncomfortable. What they did to you, whether they lied, cheated, manipulated, or abandoned you, has nothing to do with your value. It was never about your worth. It was about their wounds, their choices, their inability to love in the way you deserved, and maybe, for a while, you did believe the lies. Maybe you thought you were too broken, too emotional, too difficult, too much, but now you know better. Now you see that their actions were never a reflection of your identity. You're not the betrayal. You're not the rejection. You're not the silence they left you in. You are the one who survived it all. There's a sacred kind of healing that happens when you speak your truth out loud, whether to a friend, a therapist, a journal, or just to the mirror. It's in that telling that the shame starts to loosen its grip. Shame thrives in silence. But when your voice meets your wounds, something changes. The power shifts. You begin to reclaim what was always yours, your narrative, your power, your identity. Owning your story means refusing to be edited by someone else's opinion of you. It means not shrinking to make others feel better about what they did. It means saying, yes, that happened. But here I am anyway, stronger, wiser, and still open-hearted. It means not letting the worst parts of your past dictate the worthiness of your present. You get to decide what your story means, not them, not the people who left, not the ones who hurt you, you. And maybe the most radical act of healing is standing tall in your truth without flinching, not because it didn't hurt, but because it did, and you lived through it anyway. There is no shame in survival. There is only strength. You don't need to erase what happened to feel worthy. You don't have to deny it, disguise it, or clean it up for anyone else's comfort. Your story, in all its mess and glory, is yours. And when you own it, really own it, you stop being defined by it. You start being empowered by it. Pain is not just something you survive. It's something you can transform. It has weight, yes, but it also has wisdom. Inside every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment, there is a lesson waiting to be claimed. And when you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can this teach me? That's when growth begins. That's when pain stops being a prison and becomes a path. You don't need to pretend it didn't hurt to grow from it. You can be honest about the devastation and still decide to build something from the rubble. Growth doesn't mean glossing over what broke you. It means rising with intention. It means looking your pain in the face and saying, you don't get the final word. You get to take that pain and turn it into fuel for something new, something truer, something unshakable. Growth often starts where comfort ends. The people who hurt you may have pushed you into a place of isolation, of confusion, of doubt, but sometimes that's exactly where your real self starts to emerge. In the silence, in the struggle, in the questions no one else can answer for you. What felt like a breakdown becomes a breakthrough. What felt like the end becomes the beginning of a deeper version of you. The truth is, most people grow not in spite of the pain, but because of it. The fire didn't destroy you, it revealed what could no longer stay. It burned away the illusions, the expectations, the parts of you that were never really you. And now, in the aftermath, you see more clearly. You love more intentionally, you choose more wisely. That clarity is the gift pain gave you. When you stop asking for the old you to come back and start embracing the version of you that pain helped shape, that's power. That's healing. Because the old you didn't know what you know now. The old you tolerated things that the new you would never allow. That's not a loss, it's a gain. You're growing roots, not just wings. And both are necessary to rise. Let your pain sharpen your discernment, not harden your heart. Let it teach you boundaries, not bitterness. Let it deepen your empathy, not your resentment. The point isn't to become invincible. The point is to become wise enough to know what deserves access to your heart and what doesn't. You may not be able to thank the people who hurt you, but you can thank the growth they unknowingly sparked in you. That doesn't mean they were right. It means you decided to use what they meant for harm as material for your evolution. That's what makes you powerful. Not that you were never hurt, but that you turned that pain into something meaningful. You are the proof that pain does not get the last say. Growth is the final chapter, and you're writing it now, not in spite of your pain, but because you had the courage to face it and use it. Not to destroy, not to numb, not to get even, but to rise, wiser and more alive than you've ever been. There comes a point when surviving is no longer enough. You've cried the tears. You've felt the betrayal. You've carried the weight of other people's choices. But now you get to live. Not just exist, not just get through the day. You get to thrive. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for your joy, your freedom, or your peace. Living well is not just your right, it's your responsibility to yourself. Some people will try to make you feel guilty for your glow-up. They'll remember the version of you who stayed small, who kept quiet, who bent to keep the peace. And when you start choosing yourself, your joy, your voice, your dreams, they might call you selfish. But here's the truth. Choosing joy after pain is not selfish. It's sacred. It's revolutionary. It's how you heal. You're not living well to prove a point. You're not smiling for show. You're not building your life to get a reaction. You're doing it because you finally see your worth, and you're done waiting for others to recognize what you now refuse to ignore. That's the kind of living that doesn't need applause. It's quiet, powerful, rooted. It's yours. You don't need permission to take up space in your own life. You don't need approval to chase what sets your soul on fire. The moment you stop apologizing for your joy is the moment you begin to truly experience it. Let your laughter be loud. Let your choices be bold. Let your life be so full that it overflows into everyone you meet. That's not arrogance. That's aliveness. There will be people who remember you only by your pain. People who feel more comfortable with the broken version of you. But you don't owe them that version anymore. You are allowed to outgrow the places and people where your light had to dim to be accepted. Living well means choosing environments that reflect your growth, not your wounds. And living well isn't just about big wins or public milestones. It's about the quiet mornings when you feel peace instead of panic. It's about the moments when you choose rest over proving yourself. It's in the boundaries you keep, the love you give yourself, the dreams you no longer shelve. It's in the way you now treat yourself like someone worth loving. Let your life be the evidence that you didn't just survive what they did. You transformed because of it. Let every decision to love yourself, to invest in your future, to show up with purpose be the quiet victory they'll never understand. You don't need revenge when you're busy building a life that feels like freedom. This is your redemption story, not through destruction, but through devotion. Devotion to your peace, devotion to your healing, devotion to your most joyful, unapologetic self. And the more fully you live, the less space their memory takes up in the house you've rebuilt from the ground up. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood acts of power. People think it's about letting someone off the hook, that it means saying what they did was okay, that it means pretending it didn't happen. But forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. It's about setting yourself free from the weight of resentment that was never yours to carry in the first place. When someone wounds you deeply, they leave more than scars. They leave residue, thoughts that replay, emotions that sit in your chest, anger that simmers just below the surface. And forgiveness isn't a pass, it's a cleansing. It's choosing to no longer be a storage space for someone else's wrongdoing. It's saying, I deserve peace more than I deserve revenge. You don't need their apology to forgive. You don't need them to understand, to change, or to acknowledge what they did. Waiting for them to make it right keeps you bound to the moment you were wronged. But forgiveness says, I will not let my future be held hostage by someone else's past behavior. It's an act of spiritual rebellion. It's you choosing to reclaim your life. Some people will never understand the damage they caused, and they may go on as if nothing happened. But every time you forgive, you're not erasing the pain. You're releasing its power over you. Forgiveness doesn't mean you trust them again. It doesn't mean you invite them back into your life. It means you're done letting their actions define your emotional climate. It's okay if forgiveness takes time. It's okay if it comes in layers. Some days you'll feel like you've released it, and then something will trigger you and the pain rushes back in. That's not failure. That's healing. Forgiveness is not a one-time decision. It's a practice. It's choosing again and again to not let bitterness become your home. People will tell you to forgive and forget, but real forgiveness doesn't ask you to forget. It asks you to remember differently. To look back and say, yes, it happened. Yes, it hurt, but I am no longer trapped there. You shift from being a prisoner of the past to being the keeper of your own peace. That is the freedom forgiveness gives. You are not weak for forgiving. You are not naive. You are not saying it didn't matter. You are saying that you matter more. Your peace, your wholeness, your present and your future. That is the soil you are now tending, not the wreckage someone else left behind. You are choosing not to inhale the poison of resentment day after day and call it strength. So when you forgive, do it for the version of you that deserves to breathe freely. Do it for the you that's ready to sleep without bitterness, to love without fear, to move forward without chains. Let it be your quiet revolution, not for them, not for show, just for you. When someone wounds you, especially someone close, they don't just leave behind pain. They can leave behind a shadow, a lingering energy, doubt, shame, silence, and sometimes without realizing it, you start living your life in response to them, their judgment, their rejection, their voice in your head. But you were never meant to live in anyone's shadow. You were born to stand in your own light. The moment you start dimming your brilliance, because you're afraid it will make others uncomfortable, is the moment you start losing pieces of yourself. You begin shrinking, adjusting, second-guessing, not because you've changed, but because the memory of what they did made you question who you're allowed to be. That is their shadow speaking. and it has no place in the light you were made to carry. There is a voice inside you that remembers who you were before the pain, before the betrayal, before you learned to measure your worth through someone else's inability to love you well. That voice is still there, quiet maybe, but steady. It's the part of you that knows you were not created to live afraid of your own power. That voice is your light calling you back home. You don't need anyone's permission to be whole. You don't need their validation to be seen. When you stand in your light, you stop apologizing for the space you take up. You stop asking for permission to be radiant. And the most beautiful thing, your light isn't loud or boastful, it's true. It's calm. It's the peace of someone who has finally remembered who they are. Sometimes the people who hurt you want you to stay small. They want you to stay doubting, quiet, invisible, because that makes their guilt easier to live with. But you're not here to manage someone else's comfort. You're here to rise. And every step you take toward your own light is a step away from their control. That's not revenge. That's freedom. Standing in your light means reclaiming the parts of you that were buried under their words. It means being honest about your dreams. It means laughing again, really laughing, loving without looking over your shoulder, choosing joy not as an act of defiance, but as an act of truth. The shadow may still follow you some days. Old voices may echo, old fears may whisper, but you don't have to listen. You can acknowledge them without obeying them. Your healing is not about erasing the past. It's about not letting the past dictate your future. You are no longer defined by who hurt you. You are defined by the light you choose to walk in now. And that light, it's been in you all along. Untouched, unbroken, waiting. You didn't lose it. You just forgot how to see it. But now you remember. Now you return. And every time you choose to stand in that light, you become more of who you truly are, not because they finally see it, but because you do. There will always be people who misunderstand you, people who twist your words, question your strength, minimize your pain. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to defend the parts of your story they were never willing to understand. Instead, let your life speak. Let your choices speak. Let the way you carry yourself after everything be the loudest thing in the room. You are not here to chase validation. You are not here to win over people who were never committed to seeing your worth. That's a race to nowhere. Your healing, your peace, your joy, they are not performances. They are proof. And when you rise with grace, when you choose growth over bitterness, when you stop clapping back and start building forward, that is how your life begins to speak. You don't have to retaliate when your life becomes the answer. When you thrive, not in spite of the pain, but because you chose to alchemize it, people will notice. Even if they never say a word, even if they pretend not to see, the energy of someone who's done the work speaks louder than any explanation. The frequency of someone who's made peace with themselves cannot be ignored. Let your wholeness speak in how you walk into a room. Let your boundaries speak without needing to explain them. Let your peace speak louder than your past. Let your joy be the headline, not your trauma. You are not obligated to keep retelling the story of your pain just to prove you've healed. Your life, as it is now, is enough. Every day you choose not to let the wounds define you, you are rewriting your story. Every time you move with integrity, even when no one's watching, you are telling the world who you really are, and not the world out there, the world in here, the one that matters most, your inner world. The one that shapes every outer thing. There is power in your silence when it's grounded in truth. There is authority in your calm when it's rooted in healing. You don't need to react to every slight or explain every step. When your life is aligned with your values, with your heart, with your soul, your presence becomes a message in itself. You become the evidence of the work you've done. You'll know your life is speaking when the things that used to shake you no longer get a reaction, when the people who once had power over you no longer get access to your peace. That's the quiet revolution of healing. That's the moment you realize you no longer need closure, because you've already created your own completion. So live fully, boldly, without needing to be loud about it. Let your joy be a statement. Let your healing be your protest. Let your purpose unfold in ways that words could never capture. Because when your life speaks from a place of truth, it says everything that needs to be said and more.